into solid waste and recycling. Good morning, Mira.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. My name is Mira Samantel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services. I'm pleased to be here today with our interim solid waste and recycling manager, Erin Stein. And we are here to present a solid waste and recycling rate overview, answer any questions you have. And then our goal would be to return with an action item on June 25th. I do want to acknowledge we have a guest in the audience who would be available for any questions potentially. That's Craig Pope from Marina and Company. With that, I will turn it over to Erin for the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Mira. Good morning, Chair Harrington, member of the board.
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
You have
I'm driving.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm here today to discuss the 2023 annual rate review for the solid waste and recycling system. Our purpose is to provide your board with an overview of that annual rate review process, our findings and our analysis. And this is specific to unincorporated Washington County. And then our desired outcome is for your board to provide direction to staff regarding the proposed collection rate adjustments and then authorize staff to return at the June 25th regular meeting for action. Just to briefly go over our agenda, I just touched on our purpose and our desired outcome. Today, I'm going to pose 2 policy questions for the board, do an overview of our annual rate review process, discuss our stakeholder engagements, touch on our rate review findings, discuss the equity and transparency considerations through this year's rate review process, and then wrap up with some recommendations. So I have 2 policy questions. The first one being, should the garbage and recycling collection rates be adjusted to maintain a 10% return on revenue for certificated garbage and recycling collection companies? And our second policy question is, should garbage and recycling collection rates include bulky item collection rates as an additional offering, which would be available to our residential and commercial customers?
Customers, bulky stuff too. Other pallets. I really thought too much about that.
So just to recap our rate review process, each winter staff in conjunction with our certificate holders discuss new programmatic or operational changes, and we make update to our detailed cost reports. The actual rate review process, step 1 on this graphic, begins March 15th when we're in receipt of those detailed cost reports. Staff and our rate consultants, Marina and Company, then review those reports for accuracy and consistency. And part of that review process, which is step 3, does involve site visits for specifically those companies that maintain 75% of the system's revenue have annual site visits, but we also do have the ability to incorporate other haulers based on programs or if we have a specific item we want to dive into. We wrap up that process in April, where we look at all of the reports and we make adjustments and we consolidate that data. And from that, we can determine the system's return on revenue. With that return on revenue, we look at the financial requirements that are going to be needed to adjust us back to the target, and that target has been 10%. We take those adjustments and we come up with recommendations. And in the month of May, we go to the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee. We do a recap of the results just like we're doing today, and then we lean into recommendations to bring to your board.
Go, Grack, go.
And that brings us to step 8, where we are here today discussing our annual rate review findings. If action is taken, we do provide customers 30 days notice. And the past few years, we have sent those notices out in July with a wrap up of rates being implemented in August. Stakeholder engagement is a very important part of the rate review process. As I mentioned, we went to the Garbage and Recycling Advisory Committee in May, and they have leaned into us bringing a favorable recommendation to your board to approve rate adjustments and also include a bulky item collection rates, which we'll discuss here in a bit. We also have interested party list. We sent those out. We did receive no public comment through that channel. And then we work closely with the Washington County Haulers Association and our other certificate holders to ensure that the new processes, recommendations, and the entire process goes smoothly. And from that review in 2024, the Washington County Haulers Association has favorably supported the rate adjustments we bring to you today. So digging into the data, when we reviewed the revenue from 2023, the system itself generated $42,944,749. The income or the profit for the system was $2,257,282. And the resulting return on revenue was 5.26%. Part of the process is to look at each individual line of service, of which we have 3. And starting with residential, the return on revenue came in at 5.65%, commercial at 1.69%, and Dropbox at 8.13%. In order to adjust the system back to a 10% return on revenue, staff have determined additional revenue is required. For residential, we would be looking at an additional $1,392,000,000. That would be a rate increase of 4.8%. What that means to our average customer is a rate increase of $1.33 per month for the average urban customer with the 32-gallon can cart service. When we look at the commercial revenue needed, it would be an additional $744,000 or a 9.2% increase. That averages about $25 a month for a 4-yard container customer. And in Dropbox and Compactor, an additional $127,000 in revenue or a 2.1% increase. And that averages about $3.79 for a 10-yard box customer per haul.
I ask, I don't see it in your slides as a comparison to our city haulers.
What their
Cost.
What their
Cost per
costs
month.
are.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
know
have
mine,
that.
I'm with Hillsborough Garbage. I know it goes up every year.
Oh, yeah.
And City of Hillsborough authorizes those increases. So I was just wondering how our urban unincorporated haulers track with our municipal haulers.
So I don't have that particular slide. I did present that information to GRAC. And there's only one other jurisdiction in the region that actually has lower service rates than us. So when you compare everyone in Washington County, unincorporated does maintain the lowest rate structure.
All right, thank you.
But I certainly can provide that data after.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to me
Yeah.
just to see.
We do collect that annually. To be fair, it's 2023 published rates, as everybody else is just starting their 2024 process.
Well, yeah, this is a 2023 calendar year.
Yes.
Because I heard that was one of the issues with the haulers was that our rate increases. We're at 8 months behind. Basically, they're underperforming in the rate of return that we authorize in December, and we don't give them a raise till 8 months later, but not much we can do about that.
Actual data.
Yeah, yeah, and it just takes that long to prepare this and calculate this stuff.
Gonna move forward. So when we looked at the factors that contributed to the lower return on revenue in 2023, overall, we did see increased revenue, but it only increased at a rate of 4%, equaling $1.6 million. And unfortunately, that was outpaced by the direct cost of operations of the system. So we saw increased operating expenses at 6% or $2.1 million.
Could you remind me, what rate of return did we target last year?
10% has been the last
So we targeted.
decade at least.
Half.
Costs.
Yeah, and that's, and again, that's the trailing edge. So, yeah, it's the cost of doing business that they absorb during the calendar year 23, and we give them a bump in August of 24. So
Well,
that's,
it's not just the time, it's that we've seen it in all of our costs are accelerating year
Yep.
over year. Okay. Yep.
I think it is worth noting that our indirect cost of operations, those were static and stayed relatively low. So that's just a recap of the rate review findings. Next, I'd like to move on to rate equity. If your board will remember, we began the reduced rate program for our community back on January 1st of 2023. And after a full program year, we've had over 667 households receive assistance through the reduced rate program. We established several success criteria for that program. We wanted it to be self-funded, long-term, provide ongoing relief. We wanted to make sure that it was easy to apply for and that it really provides meaningful assistance where needed. When we looked at our 67,000 households in unincorporated, we had estimated about 20% of those meet the federal poverty level of 185%. That equals about 13,000 households here in unincorporated Washington County. And through that, we projected a 15% participation rate. So over the course of 4 years, how we mapped this was be having 2,000 households receive this assistance. So we're trending a little slightly higher in that year one than we'd anticipated. We were projecting 500 households receive this assistance.
Do any cities offer a similar program or are we leading?
We have had the city of Beaverton adopted it this year and the city of Hillsborough adopted it in December.
Okay.
And they are following a similar model.
So, but I was gonna say the federal poverty line is different for the cities. Or is it-
Everyone's using the 185% threshold. And the key to that is the conditional eligibility that comes with that. So programs like WIC or the federal LIHEAP, if individuals have already qualified for those services, they don't need to go through the financial reporting. They can just present proof that they're already qualified for those services.
Make it easier.
Yes.
I may have missed it and I apologize, but how is this piece funded?
So it's built into the system, meaning the regular rate payer pays a little bit more.
Okay.
And then those that receive the reduction pay less for their monthly bill.
Estimated the participation rate when we set the rates last year.
So my question is that if this started on January 1 of last year, how did it impact the 5% ROR results? I mean, was there impact? I'm just
Sure.
curious what.
Yeah, so
relationships.
overall, we're estimating, we don't have the exact cost because we were tracking quarterly, not monthly financials, but about $200,000 is the cost shifting from those not paying to the regular rate payer. That equals about 25 cents per month, or $3 annually for the average rate payer.
When we set the rates in 2022. The program was
Instituted.
proposed, and so then the program started in January.
And I am, first of all, I want you to know I'm a big supporter. I work through LIHEAP and all other programs in other lives, but I'm just trying to figure out what the financials are here. So that's all I'm asking. So thank you.
Yeah, and I
And
think going back,
I don't forget, I just kind of want to see where the numbers end.
and I think the impact that we had originally modeled, I don't have that right in front of me, was around a little over $8 annually once we hit that full 2,000 participants on the program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's keep going.
Okay, great. The next item I have is leaning into our rate transparency goals. These are shared goals for the metro region, which is to adopt rates for services that are reasonable, responsive, and well understood. And with that, staff is presenting a new rate structure for bulky item collection today. The key to this is it's set a price per item based on the size and weight of the materials those individuals are looking to dispose of. And we're proposing a two-step fee structure with a pickup fee, which is a flat rate based on your location, either urban or rural. And then a cost per item, regardless of the number of items you pay for the type of item, not the actual weight of the item.
You mean urban unincorporated, right?
Urban or rural
Urban unincorporated.
and rural unincorporated, yes,
Correct.
specific to
Thank you, Chair.
unincorporated.
I just want to be clear and specific. It's not urban and cities.
No.
Correct, yes. And also commercial customers that are in the urban or rural areas.
Yep.
And this slide just is a high level example of what this rate structure would look like. For example, if I have a king size mattress and box springs and I'm an urban customer, I would pay $39 in disposal cost for that item, and my pickup fee would be $16. So I would know when I called my collection company that I would be paying $55 for that service.
Can I,
Mhm.
are you done presenting this slide?
I just had a couple more points.
Yep.
The main move towards this menu, it not only provides clarity for the customers, but also for the service providers themselves. Our current structure has been a price per hour with disposal cost as a pass-through, and that can be confusing and maybe not applied equally amongst all the service providers. So this is just lending into that transparency of regardless of the party, they're gonna know exactly what they need to charge.
Could we talk about, I need a little help here.
Yeah.
And it's more along the lines of stories of use. Okay. You did talk about in the memo that having this clear collection rate structure for bulky items will provide clarity compared to what users have been experiencing. Okay, I'm all for that. So, but this is if people have such items and they want to leave them at their curb and have it collected for them, hence collection rates, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't affect those folks who might be going to a transfer station with a pickup truck or a van loaded with all kinds of miscellaneous stuff on the list.
Correct. Those facilities set their own rates.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure I got the use right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next slide. On to our recommendations. So overall, staff are here to make the following recommendations. We are recommending rate adjustments to become effective on August 1st of 2024. A 4.8% rate increase for residential customers, a 9.2% rate increase for commercial services, and a 2.1% rate increase for Dropbox and compactor service. And additionally, staff is recommending implementation of bulky item collection rates also effective on August 1st of 2024 for unincorporated Washington County. And so to recap our policy questions for your board today is, should the garbage and recycling collection rates be adjusted to maintain a 10% return on revenue for certificated garbage and recycling collection companies? And should garbage and recycling collection rates include bulky item collection rates available to residential and commercial customers?
Can I ask a question? Or I'll prime the pump. So we did some work some years ago on the rate structure system. And so now we're at least a couple of years or more into it. And I can't remember. It's where in the last 6 years we've done that work. But I'm wondering if we have a policy to aim for 10%, but we keep underperforming, then for reasons like the time lag or cost increases, should we really be setting a goal of 10%, but based on the analysis, allow our policy to adjust higher than 10% so that our actuals actually close in on closer to the 10%? And I remember part of what we talked about in that structure was there were some years where it wasn't vast, but
It varies.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but still, if we have at least 2 years in a row where we're only hitting just over 5%, then it really makes me wonder that maybe we need to be more aggressive in the rates. So, but I realize I'm sort of introducing this question late in the process. So, but it may turn into, as part of the process next year, I would like to see how the run rate of the actuals over a few years and make adjustments then. And I assume that our policies allow us to make said adjustments.
Correct. Thank you, Chair Harrington. That's definitely something staff can look into for next year as a policy discussion for your board and present options.
Throw out a couple of ideas just for discussion. One, the 10% return rate on revenue is generous at the very least. I don't know if many businesses in the country get 10% on revenue. I understand why we went with that methodology in the past because of rural, which is blended with the urban unincorporated, is more expensive. And we're trying to come up with a rate, and this is an expensive business. I mean, these folks are in an expensive business. A better guide would be a rate on investment, which is if I invest $15 million or 20 million or whatever you want to put as a number in trucks, I've got a rate on that investment. And then I get some profit for my dollars that I invest. But I could be the most inefficient business in the world, and you're still going to give me 10% just because you're doing it on revenue, not on any obligation of myself to create profits. So am I saying change the model at this point? No, I think that, and as Chair mentions late in the process, but that's very uncommon, other than maybe in the rate hauling business, to say, gee, you're going to peg it on revenue. To me, it's a rate. I don't know in your experience, Jerry, when you're in the CPA business, but I don't see many that would get a 10% rate on their revenue. They get something on their capital and on their investment. So that's number one. Number two is I know you still are using these reviewed financial statements to come up with your rates. Nobody's getting audited. So you really don't know exactly what's in there. You're presuming that Marina, because John Marina, when he started that company, got in the hauling analysis business. You're assuming that there's comparatives that are really, really good. I'm hoping that that's right. I mean, I don't know that you can, especially with the consolidation. When I first got out here, I remember what I was, maybe 30 some haulers, and now you're down to hardly anybody. So you might want some more robust analysis, and I think that's what Pam was getting at. I understand the numbers and how they work, and maybe she wasn't asking the question in that way, but she was saying, how do the numbers work? So those are the two ones that I have. I just, it's very generous. It's very generous on the 10%. On the second question, on the bulk rate, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Rogers.
Do we, thank you for those comments, Commissioner. And I would ask, do we have best practices from across the country on this type of rate setting? That's what I would be interested in looking at. You know, I think that that's important.
So commissioners, I think you're raising a lot of good policy questions for us to look into within the next calendar year.
Thank you.
So if there's additional areas that you would suggest that we look into in a review process, staff would be more than happy to collect that and take that under consideration.
I think first, we need a reminder of when we went through a full rate review process. Because if it was only in 2022, do we really need to do it again in 2025? But the worksheet doesn't remind us of when the last time was we went through that.
So for today, I am thumbs up on both.
Okay.
And I especially like the delineation of the bulk items. That's
I know when I first went, if businesses were to assume on the commercial rate a 9.2% increase and they would get the 10%. This is inflationary. We know that because businesses don't pay rates and they don't pay taxes. They pass them. So we just need to be aware that I would hope that we could blend in some point in the future, So we're not getting these spikes because it's consumers, what I hear on a daily basis is very expensive in the market today. And so that's a pretty good size increase, that 9.2. So I don't know how you blend, but maybe
Well,
take a look.
part of the reason for the way the container business works is the number of container customers varies from
Year to year.
geography to geography, right? We're talking about urban unincorporated and rural. So the container business in that geographic area is different than the city of Tualatin, the city of Beaverton, the city of Cornelius. And each jurisdiction goes through and uses a slightly different system for their rate increases. Some cities have one line of business subsidizing another line of business. It just depends on how they've implemented their framework. So that's where we really need to lean into our worksheets, giving us the history. If we have a policy framework, when did we last set that policy framework? And then I mean, you talk about last year using it, but depending upon when we set that framework, how long has it been for us using that?
The only question I'd have is, oh, I'm sorry, if you could go ahead, I've talked too much, go ahead. Yeah, okay, I'll follow you.
I'll be quick. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the communication plan to residents. And I don't remember, I tried to remind myself last night. Did we communicate that to residents, especially the unincorporated residents, that their residential rate is going to increase and to expect this increase? Has there been any communications? And then I also wonder, what's your communication plan for the bulky items? I think it's a good idea. I think it will be easy for a lot of residents instead of going to go get a car, rent a car or whatever, truck, and then hold those bulky items. You could just find paying one price is easier than doing all these other steps. So I like the idea of what you're presenting, that second option, but I am wondering about your communication plan and how we communicate before and after. And then the other question I have is around, I think this is sort of like a wish list to Tanya. Next time we review this, perhaps we could consider increasing the property line higher than the 185. I know it's easier to track for people and there is ways, but the 300% level, there's ways. The Oregon Health Plan is easier way. So I think it's the financial cost the system is feeling, the people are feeling too, is the where I'm coming from. Just where the county is feeling that burden of cost increase, families are feeling the same way. So how do we relieve that burden while we, just share the pain is the message here or the point I'm trying to make. So perhaps we could consider what that will look like, how many families we could help if we increase the level of federal poverty line. It'd be
I guess
tricky.
my comment to that would be, we're too early in the process to make that modification. I think especially if I heard you correctly, you had projected 20,000 households would qualify for the 185%.
We have about 13,000 households at the 185%. So with, depending on participation levels, 2,000 households at that originally established rate.
So that's,
And then they're on the program for 2 full years once they're accepted to the program.
so we've kind of plugged in 2,000 households and we are at what?
We have
665?
667.
Okay, so
In the first year of the program.
yeah,
Yeah, you were expecting 500, you said earlier.
Yeah,
but
we
you
had modeled
better. So
about 500.
Kudos to you of however communication plan you have, more people heard the message and participated. So bravo. But I think there are more people out there that really do need help.
Well, and to circle back to the communication plan, we do provide written notice through the collection companies. That goes out to all lines of services that would experience a rate adjustment up or down. So this year, commercial, residential, and Dropbox customers would all receive that notice with 30 days notice. So if the board decides to take action, those notices would be set to go out on July 1st for August 1st rate increases. We also update our website. And with the bulky waste items, I know that the slide that I shared was just a snippet of the different types of things you may have at your household or business. We're building out additional supports on our website just to lean into that work, because sometimes it's hard to decide if you need a drop box based on the volume of items you have versus maybe just curbside collection.
Can the bulky items, I know this isn't, I didn't see the list and I'm looking forward to seeing the expanded list, but paint containers. When we paint a house, it's always a tricky,
Have you take that offline?
oh, could we add that in there somehow one day?
No, that's a hazardous waste. There's a whole paint recycle program
Oh, I'm aware of it. I've
yeah, we have
utilized
to take
it.
it clear to wherever it is.
It's outside the scope of this
Yeah.
program.
So can I ask a question about waste management? Is a major player on this? What percentage of the overall do they manage?
We have about 54% of the customer base here in unincorporated Washington County.
Then the other 46 is kind of divvied up between
Pride has a big.
2 or 3 or 4.
around 30.
Yes, Pride, Walker, and Waste Management are the 3 that had site visits this year, just based on the making up that top 75% of the system.
Okay,
Watco
all right.
and Hillsborough Garbage each have a little bit of rural.
Hillsborough Garbage, who I have in that, the communication that you were talking to, I've always gotten from Hillsborough Garbage.
I get it.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm okay with this.
So you get it from your.
Hauler, waste management.
Yeah, we draft the letters and then they are sent out. Yes.
I always see it as a combine, but
So
Okay,
what I heard is everybody's thumbs up.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We will return on June 25th with an action item with these recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to library funding and governance project status update and further clarification. You might recall that we had this in on the May 28th work session. And I've got to say, I have it so clear now, thanks to your information, that job well done.
Well, thank you, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. My name is Danny Ledesma. I'm one of the ACAs, and we're back here today because we wanted to clarify a few items from our presentation last time. Thank you for reminding us that you received tons and tons of information, and when there's changes, that can be a little bit jarring. So what we want to do today is basically reintroduce you to the funding and governance project that Lisa is leading with our consultant team, Marina and Company. and really hone in on the outcomes that we hope to achieve, those deliverables, and to give you a really clear timeline in a format that you've seen before so that it'll be a little bit easier to recall and, kind of carry that through. You'll see us back again here next week as we talk about how all of this aligns with the planning. Yep, the planning that we're doing with our colleagues, Philip, the Fabulous, and Aaron Calvert, our other ACAs.
You're still calling it commitments.
I thought Philip was the.
It's his own name.
Philip is fabulous.
I didn't hear the Philip. I heard Aaron. I thought, wow, you're.
Well, Aaron
It's
is
just Aaron.
Aaron is excellent.
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. There's no shortage of amazing adjectives for our colleagues.
I was gonna say, you might get the apple out, polish it up a little bit,
So I'll turn it over to Lisa, who is really amazing and just leading a really remarkable effort.
Leader Lisa.
Leader Lisa.
Oh,
So
boy.
we had a sort of executive team meeting of the project in person. So we were there with city managers, with library directors, and the consultant team talking about the aspirations for this project. And I thought it was really positive, and folks were sort of in a really great mind space, I
Yeah.
thought. So
That was great.
terrific.
Library leaders rule.
Totally.
Thank you, the dynamic Danny.
Oh, mic drop.
So for the record, I'm Lisa Tattersall, manager of Washington County Cooperative Library Services, and here today to provide you with a little more information. So just get started here. So public library service in Washington County is provided by a partnership between the county, 9 cities, and 3 nonprofit organizations, together known as the Cooperative. WCCLS is a department of Washington County, and we provide funding, core infrastructure, and support services to link 16 library buildings into one countywide system that benefits all county residents. Library buildings are operated by our partner agencies, which are cities or nonprofits, and the partners provide staff, physical collections, programs, and services. The WCCLS Executive Board, which is the group that met last week with our consulting team, part of our work sessions, not work session for the project, is composed of city managers or assistant city managers from our 9 city partners, and then the nonprofits are represented by the president or chair of their governing board. And then this group, the executive board, is advisory to your board. And then we have the WCCLS policy group, which is composed of library directors, and they are advisory to the executive board and to WCCLS. Just a little reminder of our funding and our budget. So this is fiscal year 23-24. We're funded by a transfer from the general fund, as well as revenue from a local option levy that expires in June of 2026. Out of this combined revenue, WCCLS provides library funding allocations for our partner agencies, as well as funds the core infrastructure and support services that is provided by the county, including our heavily used digital collection. So the next 2 slides provide hopefully a little more clarification and detail upon what was presented last week. And so we want to spend some time today mapping out the goals of the process, how they tie to very concrete deliverables in the scope of the project, and how those fit in the timeline. So the first primary goal of the project is to improve service consistency and equity across the county. We have 3 outcomes tied to this goal, and those are listed in bold underneath on the slide, and each of those outcomes has a concrete deliverable that will come to your board. So the first outcome is to establish a common or shared understanding of the current service levels across the system and the total cost to provide those levels of services, incorporating both county and local funding sources. Staff plan to bring your board a current state assessment report that will outline the current service levels and the cost at a work session scheduled for September this year.
That's going to include the cities and.
Correct.
Contributions. There. So,
Yep, and the nonprofit fundraising and the whole
Perfect.
thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. All of the groundwork that we develop at that point into getting kind of a good understanding of the current state and current costs will then flow into the next outcome, which is establishing recommended base service levels for all county residents. Staff plan to bring to your board a report with future recommended baseline service levels and what those would cost, along with 3 to 5 funding options for your board to consider, and those would be levy rates
for the fiscal year 26-27 through fiscal year 30-31 levy cycle. This deliverable is scheduled for your board work plan for January of 2025. And it also ties into the levy work plan timeline that you all will see next week.
I really wish we would by 25. You know,
It's June 11th.
we're already in June of 24. I'm trying to tap the brakes here a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot going on.
Oh, we're going full throttle on all those things that were on that table we went over yesterday.
I know.
Full throttle.
Time is
Soon
moving.
I'm gonna be old if you keep doing this. Back.
That was yesterday.
I already-
Oh, That's why, okay. Pause for a second. That's why going back to the previous topic, I was like, wait a minute, reminder, when we did this framework, do you really want to add something bigger to the list?
That's
I meant I was being old though.
email, but yeah.
Ooh, Princess. Yeah.
No, I got a better word, but I can't use it.
All right, Chair. Gathers it in.
Mhm.
Gather.
I'll draw our attention.
Back to library.
Third outcome.
That one I heard at the library either.
Okay, so, and then continuing on, again, that broader goal of improving service consistency and equity. So the third outcome or the final outcome for that goal is basically determine who does what to provide those base levels of service. So basically evaluating and refining partner and WCCLS roles in providing service and how we create mutual accountability for achieving service consistency and equity. And so staff plan to bring a report outlining those recommended governance improvements that would be integrated into the next iteration of our IGAs with partners. And that would come to your board at a work session in September 2025. Any questions on those first set of goals? Okay. All right. The next, the second major goal for our process is to support community needs by creating a library system with a fiscally sustainable future. And the first outcome there is to identify options for funding base level library services and specifically providing your board with levy rate options for consideration. This is paired with an outcome from the previous slide. So you would see the sort of recommended future-based service levels as well as those levy rate options together. And that would come to your board in January 2025. The second outcome is to establish metrics to allocate funding for partners operating libraries. Currently, we depend on historical practices to allocate funding, and it is definitely time to revisit those with an equity and data-driven perspective. This recommendation would come to your board at a work session in June of 2025, and that would be a report that would outline the recommended funding formula, criteria, and distribution methodology, along with financial projections for the cooperative, county, and partners based on the recommended allocation formula. So many of the issues we're addressing with this process are very long-standing questions or ambiguities about the current governance model. We've been around since 1976. And so I think some of you may remember these are familiar things that have sort of questions that linger. So these specific process goals, outcomes, and deliverables all stem from those sort of long-standing questions and from conversations with your board. And staff brought the scope of the Funding a Governance project to your board back in July of 2023. After that, staff worked collaboratively with our city and nonprofit partners to draft an RFP scope as well as criteria to evaluate any proposals that came in. And together we scored proposals for the project. The agreement with staff and with our partners was that Marina and Company provided the best proposal. And after the contracting process concluded, we began work with Marina in March of 2024. So the current levy and IGAs expire in June of 2026. The next levy cycle is July 26 through June 2031. After making these concrete improvements to services, funding, and governance that we've reviewed today, we would close the project with a final report from Marina and Company with recommendations your board could choose to explore. And I think this is probably a good time to switch to the detailed timeline slides next. Okay. So, in July of last year, I brought a proposed scope and draft timeline to your board for this project. After working closely with our partners and seeing what consulting firms thought was possible from the proposals we received, the timeline has become a lot more specific and detailed. We also have the benefit of receiving board direction on the November 2025 election date for the library and public safety levies. There's a lot of information on these slides, so I'm just going to orient you generally to what's going on here. So each of the slides is comparing the timeline from the July work session of last year to the current timeline that we're operating with. So the top timeline is the July, the bottom timeline is current. Each timeline has 2 rows. Top row reflects the funding and governance process work. The bottom row reflects levy specific work. They are connected, but they are separate processes. Items in italics are new since July of 2023, and then anything in orange denotes a board touch point. So as you can see, with the benefit of a great consulting team on board and a fully scoped out project, we have more concrete and detailed deliverables, which adds complexity and detail to the current timeline. It also pushed a few deliverables back a few months. However, we continue to meet all of the process deadlines related to the November 2025 levy and the expiration of the IGAs, and we will achieve all of our process goals by spring of 2026. It's one of the things I always think about in working with our cooperative is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we're trying to really go far in this work. But I think we are still doing it on a pretty aggressive timeline with some pretty serious deadlines. And we're really looking forward to achieving some concrete improvements for our community.
But this level of specificity also increases our confidence level in terms of hitting the desired milestones.
And the understanding when they change a bit.
So I'm happy to at this point, I didn't script this part out. I can kind of highlight some of the shifts or the changes. I think most of them are actually on the next slide. So I'm going to switch over to that, and then there's arrows. So if you look at so this is basically this slice of the timeline is the calendar year 2025, and then the first half of 2026. And so the first item at the top left of kind of working to implement your decisions based on the recommendations, including drafting IGAs, we've really kind of exploded those out into more detailed work products and processes. And so basically there's 2 major components that go into our IGAs, and one is the funding formula and the criteria of how funding gets distributed, as well as then how we are all mutually accountable for all of the resources we have to provide great community service. And so we'll be splitting that out. So in June, you all, your board will be getting a report with that formula recommendation and funding criteria, the financial projections, all of that. And then in September, there would be a report of recommended governance improvements to incorporate into the IGA. I think another shift on the timeline is July. In the original timeline, we have your board reviewing draft IGAs in the summer of 2025, and that is going to be in the winter, spring of 2026 in our new timeline. But that still leaves us 3 months to go through a very complex signature process with 12 agencies and get that done before the IGAs expire in June 2026. I think those are kind of the main shifts here.
Yep. So the only thing that isn't listed is in the April to June. In the second row is the board actually needs to do the referral work in June.
Thank you.
Yeah, you give us the report, but the reason I bring voice to this is we actually have a deliverable. We, the board.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I didn't get it right on May 28th. So with this, I walked through it very carefully because I felt, since I raised the flag, I didn't get it, that I needed to put the work in to make sure I got it with this improved layout. And I get it, folks. That's the good news. It will be intense, but I have really great confidence in the work that's being done because of the collaborative approach you use to develop the RFP with city partners and nonprofit partners, and with the collaboration that you've used to develop this schedule. So for us, if we fast forward to this time next year, our brains will have done the intense work on our budget in May. We'll still have to follow through in the adoption in June, but we'll also have the benefit of this library report coming to us in June, and with staff support, really leaning on Danny, Lisa, and the county counsel's office, putting together the referral proposal, because remember, we have to have all the ballot title and the language. I'll just assert it's going to be a replacement, folks. We know that just from costs, and that it's been 2 cycles, right? The last, since we had a replacement previously. So our referral will be a real compact process. And then August, September, and October will be a very intense campaign time. I choose that word carefully. It's intense, but from my standpoint, it's very doable given the strength of our nonprofit and city partners. So I am really, really proud and pleased, Lisa, that you accepted the challenge that we asked you to accept from feedback a couple of years ago about the kind of improvements that we wanted to make given the equity resolution, and the fact that we wanted to modernize the understanding of the system so that it would see our community through another 10 to 15 years, a good solid couple of cycles. So I'm just bursting with confidence and pride in all of this, and in full partnership. I'll be there to do the work. So I don't have any questions. Those were my comments. I didn't go last. I went first. Thank you. So commissioners, questions and comments?
Well, she's got a couple more slides to present.
Well, oh, you're right.
Yes.
Before we move on past this timeline slide, just a reminder.
The short-term one. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Reminder to your board, as soon as next week on June 18th, the libraries and public safety levy timeline and milestones will come before your board in work session. So Chair, we will make note of your request and make sure that's on that timeline.
Yep. It's not a surprise. So the reason why I paused here is because of the short term being through the IGA completion, right? And also because these 2 slides are the one that have the major chunk of the specificity that I know I went full tilt on at May 28th. So I just wanted to pause and see if with these 2 slides, if you all had any questions.
I just want to say, Lisa, you do a great job of really taking in the questions, the needs, and turning around information that's helpful. I know it was your request, but I can tell you that I benefit from the clarity and the juxtaposition of the 2 timelines. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm quick to say I don't understand.
We love learners and libraries. So always happy to do more information. That's our job.
That's it. I'm a learner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learning Lisa, not a loser. So it sounds like everybody's.
No, I love this. I love this information. I was relating it to yesterday. We had the HR, total recap. Today we've got WCCLS. I was reminded, just my brain rolled back to the first time I was introduced to WCCLS was in 92, 93. Lou Ogden was chair. And that's the first time I met him. He was mayor of Tualatin. So it goes back a ways there. And but so yeah, you're doing a great job on this. I appreciate this.
All right, one last timeline slide. This is a little more empty, but it's got exciting stuff in it, which is new operational governance and funding allocation methods in place, starting with our next levy cycle. And then in the fall of 2026, we will have a final kind of culmination report with lessons learned and then any long-term recommendations that Marina and Company has with a roadmap to execute those. And that would be presented to your board at a work session.
Opportunity for the future.
Okay, and then just a quick
Slides as last
same
time.
slides as last time, but just to highlight that I think our commitment to partner collaboration and community engagement in this data-driven process, it's very interactive. As Danny was saying, we had a great in-person session and we have more scheduled throughout the summer and the fall. So looking forward to those. And then I think just one more reminder, since this process is so collaborative, it is really important to have a clear decision-making framework. And so this decision-making framework is what your board supported for this process at the work session in July of last year. WCCLS and Marina and Company continue to reference this framework in structuring our ongoing work with partners throughout the process. As the governing board for our cooperative, your board will be making the final decisions on recommendations that will be supported by at least 2/3 of our city partners and 2/3 of our nonprofit partners. So next steps, we will return to your board in September with the current state assessment and the current total cost to deliver service. And I'm happy to answer any questions or take any further information needs. Thank you.
A couple of comments. One, I very much appreciate you looking at the level of service, much as the county is hopefully going to do in the future with their cost of service. It's an important question because there's a lot of differences between various systems. So I appreciate that. Secondly, having done a lot of mergers and acquisitions, which is a different area than this, but it has similarities in my career. I know there's going to be pushback and I'm not certain how your resolution is going to be because there's going to be at times where people say, I don't agree, and maybe I don't even want to be part of a system because I can do something local, and that's a lot of puffery. People want to be in the system, so I'm hoping that whatever methodology you use, that you come to a good conclusion because I don't think it's going to be quite as rosy. You're going to have ups and downs in this process, so I gird up and I commend you for taking on that challenge. It's going to be a fun ride.
Thanks for your support, Commissioner Roger.
Anyone else? Willie's thumbs up. Commissioner Treese, thumbs up. Commissioner Fry? Great. I'm thumbs up as well. I would like to make a suggestion, however. I think we should formally approve this work plan. Just put it on the consent agenda, attach your presentation, have an R&O that approves the work plan. And the reason for doing so is such that our city and nonprofit partners see our commitment and shared agreement. Okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Terrific. Thank you so much for your great work and your patience. Appreciate it. Okay, folks, we are switching topics entirely. Moving on to confer with the selected recruitment agency, Raftelis, to discuss the posting of the county council position. Welcome and take it away, Ann Ober.
Good morning. Thank you for setting aside some time for us to talk to you about the recruitment for the next county council. On June 4th, you accepted the resignation of the seated county council, and we're trying to support Courtney in going at a nice clip to make sure that she is able to balance all the needs of the office. So This is the kickoff for the recruitment. We will be coming back to you individually over the course of the next couple of days just to talk about specifics that you may have about the recruitment that you want us to hear. And then we will be going through a process all the way up until December. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Heather Gantz from Raftelis, and she's going to walk you through. We're both here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to partner with you on this important recruitment. I've done a lot of work with Washington County, and I value the continued partnership. So thank you first and foremost. Want to highlight a few things for you today. We'll get into some greater detail, but a few key components that I want to talk through with you today. First is there are some documents that Anne has shared with you, being the job description that the county has for this position. I would ask that you review that and document any changes or things that you want to highlight there. And then the second document is the county council brochure that we used in our recruitment back in late 2020, early 2021 when Tom Carr was hired. Those two documents will serve as our foundation, and we'll build off of them and enhance and kind of recreate them, not from scratch, but we'll use them as a foundational tool. So if you could take the time to review those two documents, that would be greatly appreciated. We'll also want to highlight a few of the key milestones, timeline pieces. We've been working, Ann and I, diligently with your board calendar, which is very complicated. And so we have done some great work, I think, in making sure that we keep this process moving forward and also align with all of the things that you already have outlined throughout the remainder of the year. We'll be meeting individually one-on-one over the course of the next week, not with you as well as with the county counsel's office, Tanya and her team, as well as with the sheriff. So we'll be collecting individual input. Our goal is to bring a final version for a formal approval to you on July 16th. So we'll be back together in this room to review and discuss. There will be steps between that, but that's a major milestone. And then that will allow us to formally kick off the recruitment the following week. We'll be back together September 3rd to review our process, our interview and selection process. So we'll be talking in greater detail about who will be involved in that process, how we'll interview questions, overall process. So we'll do that in early September. And then on September 18th, we'll be providing you with candidate materials, be a full packet of information with resumes, cover letters, other relevant information pertaining to candidates. And then we'll be discussing those candidates on October 1st. In executive session. So I'll spend time sharing more with you about my interviews with the candidates, their backgrounds, the value that they would bring to the county counsel's office, to this opportunity, to the county as a whole. And then we'll be making some decisions about who we want to interview in our first round of interviews. Those first round of interviews will happen at the end of October. October 30th and November 1st are the dates that we have outlined for those interviews. And then from there, final interviews will be mid-November, ending November 15th. So at that point, hopefully we will have a candidate that you are excited about and want to move forward with. And then we'll enter into the negotiations, contract components, hoping to be able to make a decision and an announcement by December 1st.
So we're looking at probably February before this person comes on. We give them 2 months to.
Yeah, depending upon where they're coming from. Correct. Usually 4 to 8 weeks, and particularly 8 if a relocation or something like that is required. If it's a local person, it could be shorter.
Can I ask, given that schedule in the document that was in the work session packet, activity 3, is titled Support Interviews and Selection. This is something Ms. Angie and I laugh about because I can't remember when we did the Zoom interviews for our county council candidates. And she reassures me that I actually met her in a Zoom interview, but
I remember that.
boy, what a busy time. I don't remember it. I only remember meeting her in person as part of the final interview. So either way, I'm in good company. So I was thinking about, what you've outlined here for the person to experience. Multi-step interview process, writing presentations, tours, department directors, meet and greet. I'm imagining this over a multi-day experience.
We have
But
3 days reserved. So, yeah.
great. Okay.
So this is we'll see if it's a 2-day or 1-day
Yeah.
process, but we're giving ourselves some flexibility to make sure that we can get everything in.
Okay.
And the information in that document that you're looking at are suggested options. So when we come together on September 3rd, we as a board will determine what makes the most sense and how we want to include the candidates and what processes we want them to go through.
Mm-hmm. Which relates to the next page on the recruitment timeline. You have in-person meetings with the blue. That would be the final interviews for sure. The activity 2 of conducting outreach and initial screening. Would you be able to do that using, virtual meetings again? Okay. Okay. Those were the only questions I had on that.
Great. Any other questions on the timeline?
No, first of all, I appreciate what you stepped in and this might be a longer timeline than we were anticipating, but
I actually think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I told Anne when she gave me an initial timeline, I kind of wanted to hug her, but didn't. So I just hugged her. So we feel good about this. I feel good about this, and I think our team feels good about this.
good.
timeline.
Well, again, we appreciate you stepping in the gap here.
And do I remember in our other hiring experiences that in that last blue and yellow dot in November, December, we had time for county tours as well, to take the person around to see the county. Am I remembering that? For livability issues, that type of.
We did not do a formal tour. We had an interview. We had 2 panel interviews with staff, Tanya and other leaders from across the organization. And then you all as a body interviewed the candidates.
For Tom?
Yes.
That's how I remember.
Well, maybe
I think we did
maybe it's
allow
something we
for
do wanna allow
time
for.
Yeah,
to tour on their own. We gave them
Yeah.
that time, but we didn't do a formal tour.
Okay, that's what I do remember, especially people that aren't familiar with this area. I think I just want to include that as
Make
well.
sure they understand District 4's route.
And where
No,
to
I
buy
have
a house.
the most awesome, just
The whole.
full on experience to Tualatin Valley.
And
We got great communities for you to choose from.
and part of my thought process here, and I'm trying to approach this from a position that isn't negative. And that is, I want to make sure that when someone comes out to visit Washington County, that there's a clear delineation about who Washington County is in regard to the entire region. So
It's a great idea, and this is something we can easily add into the process. Just because we did it one way last time does not mean we have to do it again that way this time. This was a starting point, and on September 3rd, think about what these items are that you want to make sure we deliver, and we'll organize.
Okay.
And
I think
part of-
it's a great idea, Pam. They need to see a global perspective as well as Washington County. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Part of our individual one-on-one discussions will be a bit about process and what you'd like to see in process. And those can be early thoughts. And then, as Anne said, we'll come together on the 3rd and really determine how we want to move forward from a selection process, interview and selection process.
And the other question that I have, I think is fairly obvious answer here, and that is that you will be accessing ICMA, other opportunities. I'm sure Tanya has contacts with people that have increased exponentially over the last year. So just want to make sure that we're taking full advantage of all of those things.
Yes, that is correct.
Does every state have an state municipal lawyers association?
I don't know, but we can definitely find out. I would presume, but
I know they would all have a state bar association, but
They would all have a state bar association, and then I am fairly certain that the Pacific Northwest or West regions all have municipal attorney associations.
The comment I'd have is that process is great. Everybody's comments are great. I think we've all said to Courtney, thank you for your interim, but are you going to make it very explicit that since there isn't reciprocity in licenses between states, that there is an expectation that whoever selected is going to expedite, getting licensed here in Oregon, so that we don't say to Courtney, in March of 25, you got to only go a few more months.
that's a stipulation in the job requirement
Yeah.
and in the hiring contract. Yeah, we
Good.
did that with Mr. Carr.
Yeah. Took
Yeah.
a while though.
Yeah.
So
No, it didn't.
He-
The
pretty good
state,
about that.
the state had a glitch in their process, but
yeah,
he met
I'm
the
not saying
6-month
it
goal.
was his fault. I'm saying it was, yeah.
No, he met the requirement.
If you want to wait 6 months, I guess you're maybe 6 months.
It's a standard. That's why we put it together the way we did last time. But they can support you in your one-on-one.
Absolutely.
Good.
Good job, Matt.
Thank you.
You did a great job finding us Tom Carr last time. And Tanya, keep playing the role you played last time in finding Tom Carr. We need another. So I'm looking forward to who you put in front of us and their qualifications and who you find. You have a great track record, and I think everybody you found in Beaverton still might be there, with the exception of the interim.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Thank you so much. Anything else I want to, I know that we all have one-on-ones scheduled. Is there anything that you want to highlight related to the position? Initial feedback that you'd like to share from a group perspective, or would you prefer to wait for your one-on-ones?
I'd prefer to wait myself.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to working with you all.
Terrific.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, I'm going to lean on Courtney and her team's expertise as to bringing in the professional side of it. From my standpoint, it's probably much more of an outside looking in. Communication is going to be extremely important, and a few other things that
I
we can
wouldn't
talk about.
describe it as the outside looking in.
Well, from my standpoint,
It's not the
you don't get in the
legal
legal
part.
weeds.
Yes, but
And
it's,
so
it's the board part.
that's where I'd be relying on Courtney and certainly that part of it. So yeah, I'll look forward to our meeting. I think it's scheduled for
Tomorrow afternoon. Yes.
Mhm.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Very much. I would suggest that we take our 15-minute break and reconvene at 10:30 and pick up with board and leadership communication and go from there. Great, thank you.
My garage door is being replaced today.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent.
And the
And I needed to clean my house. So it worked great. My camera was off, everything was muted. I just carried the laptop. Bathroom. So worked out great. Okay, we're back for board and leadership communication. I just contributed more information than anybody needed to know. So, but I do have some business stuff to share. And since I have the mic and I'm talking, I'll just start for a change. Last Friday, we had a really joyous occasion with the groundbreaking of the Center for Addiction Triage and Treatment in the Beaverton facility. The groundbreaking for that, it was great to meet the architect, the architecture team, the construction team, as well as Advanced Tribal for subcontracting. We had our team did a terrific job of including Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici and our various state delegation leadership from the Oregon Senate and the House, as each of those branches of government have contributed towards the CAP project. The previous day, I represented us in an event with Congresswoman Bonamici. She has introduced a bill in Congress, the Project Turnkey Act, taking the state of Oregon Project Turnkey project as run by the Oregon Community Foundation, and has a proposal to take it national. So it was a really good event. Our staff participated as well. It was a whole panel talking about the kind of learnings and the value all across our area. Beyond that, I've been doing a lot of analysis work. It's real cerebral stuff that helps me with my strategic thinking, though I have to admit it's pretty energy intensive. So I'm looking forward to having this done and taken care of before the end of this month. Beyond that, the team has delivered the draft content for the state of our county address, which is just next Thursday, June 20th at 6 p.m. So I hope you'll all share that in your networks. It will be right here in the auditorium from 6 to 7 p.m. in person, as well as live streamed. Beyond that, I've got a Metro Supportive Housing Services Tri-County Planning Body meeting. The metropolitan mayors have requested a meeting with the 3 county chairs to talk about Metro's SHS reform idea. And we have coming up this Thursday a grand opening of another affordable housing project here in Washington County, this one Cedar Rising in the Aloha area. So looking forward to that as well. And then next week, next Tuesday, we have a boatload of work to do to adopt our various budgets. I have to tell you, I don't understand how in local government an elected official can vote no on a final budget, given that it is our duty to adopt a balanced budget every single year. But I was just reading the media yesterday about the Multnomah County budget. So I can I can agree to disagree, but to vote no means that you're not following through on that responsibility, which I'm still grappling with. Anyway, that's it from me.
Could I ask a quick clarification? Did you say the metro regional mayors asked to meet with the tri-county chairs?
Yeah, the organization called the Metropolitan Mayor's
Okay, so that's,
I'm just sharing that they've made the request.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to integrate all this requests in, given what's on our plate. You know, we're sprinting along, so. Yeah. Anyway. Who wants to go next on that jolly note?
go next. Let's see, this last week I had several check-ins, one with the auditor. And that was an interesting update. I appreciate the time that she spends with me. We ended up being by phone because of internet connection, but it was a good conversation. And I had a community action development committee meeting. This week I have the coordinating group for MPAC we didn't do a whole year work plan in January and February. We're just now getting to that point. But actually, it's not a bad thing because we've had experience. We know what some of the issues are. And so we're going to be setting our plan, and that meeting is this Thursday. But I don't want to give the impression that things are moving along. We know what our work is cut out for us this year, and we're moving along. It's just a matter of coming together to say, where do we need to put the pedal to the metal, and where can we back off a little bit? So,
Well, MPAC really has a
big year,
big deliverable with getting the UGR input to Metro, and you've already finished your RTP work, right?
Yes, that was last year.
Yeah, those are the two biggest responsibilities that MPAC has to do.
And I don't want to give the impression that we're not on track for the UGR work. What we need to remind ourselves is all the other little things. We've been focusing on that piece, but we want to make sure that we've built in time for the other things that we need to do along the way. So, it's really, I've enjoyed working with the vice chair from Happy Valley. He's a council person, Brett Sherman. Thank you, Pam. And he's going to be a good chairman moving forward. We all have to learn some things about how to run these meetings, and I think I've mentioned that before, but he will do a great job. Vince Jones-Dixon is sitting in the Multnomah County seat, which is, he's really a temporary there because he was the chair before me. But because City Council in Portland has got such a huge slate that's going to be coming on board because of the fact that Multnomah County still has to elect 2 seats in November, we won't be knowing, I don't think, who that permanent slot will be for Multnomah County until after November, which also reminds me that I am going to be working with Tanya to find a spot on our I think it should be a work session issues where we talk about who's going to be the next representative to MPAC from our county as a whole. So
we'll do that in January.
Is it January?
Yes.
I guess.
And isn't that assigned? So there's a rotation.
It is assigned from the standpoint that there's three.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a rotation.
Oh, I see. You're talking about your spot.
I'm talking about, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Not me as representative to MPAC from Washington County. I'm talking who the next person in the leadership of MPAC will be. So
You weren't clear at all.
I'm sorry.
So you're the chair now.
Mhm.
The vice chair is from Clackamas
Mhm.
County, and the second vice chair is from Multnomah County.
Exactly.
So the leadership for MPAC next year will cycle through to Clackamas, Multnomah, and then there's the Washington
seat.
County Yeah, and the Washington County one can be either a county or a city person.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll be discussing it.
And that'll be for chair in 27, the rotation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
We'll have a, yeah, anyway.
So with that, I also want to say this last week, I met with Senate President Rob Wagner. We started a discussion about the issues that we've discussed here, unfunded and underfunded mandates. I talked with Aaron Doyle about it. We'll be sharing what information as a group we want to make sure it gets back to the legislature. I'm pleased to have been nominated along with Commissioner Stegman from Multnomah County to be a representative to the Regional Solutions Advisory Committee. The governor's office will select one of the two of us for that role moving forward. But it was a full slate and everybody was approved. And thank you, Chair, for being there on that vote. Last Wednesday, I met with the Clean Water Services team to talk about this. And I learned that
Very organized.
they are wonderfully organized. And I've got my life straw. Catherine, Chair has given me hers from last year, and I've got a new one for this year. So nothing but bottled water, and I won't forget that.
I never used it.
Did you? But you only drank bottled water.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You only forget once.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my monthly check-in with I had my monthly check-in with Chief Deputy Al Roque this last week, and we always have an interesting talk. He does text me when there's an event in unincorporated Washington County that is significant, and we have a deputy that was the first on scene for a fatal car crash, and that took a while for medical assistance to get there, and he was with the person as they passed away, and that's always a difficult situation. And he'd also had two other events that were difficult. So I just, I always communicate to Al that I really hope that he's doing okay. So it's a tough job, and when you hear those stories, you recognize that I'm very grateful that we have the people we have working here. Yes, the CAT groundbreaking was amazing, and it was so well orchestrated, just right on time. Everything went very smoothly, and it was a great show by the legislature as well. So that was very cool.
Staff even arranged a beautiful day.
Yes, did a wonderful job. So I leave on Friday of this week, and I'll be gone until I think July 1st is the day that I come back to the office. I have a couple more meetings this week. I have a call with Andrew McGough of Work Systems Inc., and that's to just discuss their behavioral health workforce programs. I want to know what's going on there. And I mentioned the Impact Work Plan meeting. I will be attending the Cedar Rising grand opening, and I also on Thursday night have the June PAB board meeting. So that's my week.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I also had my one-on-one with the auditor, and I'm looking forward to her audit of the MSTIP program and our ARPA first tranche programs that we had in regards to workforce development. The CAT groundbreaking, it's unfortunate that I couldn't be there because I know that was a great event. So I'm looking forward to maybe seeing a few pictures there of what was going on. As you know, Judy was recognized by the Rosarians for her volunteer work, and so that's where we were that morning. There is, Chair, just for your information, we are having a CFTLAC executive meeting on the 21st and the full meeting on the 28th. There's certainly public meetings, so if you'd like to weigh in, put that on your calendar, you could. We're making our presentation as to what we've been doing over the past several months with the governor's staff,
couldn't make the 21st, taking that day off for a long weekend. 28th I could.
Okay.
And if I need to submit something in writing on the 21st.
No, I don't think so. I'll get the information that we're presenting is, of course, public documents. So we were refining that currently, and that's what I'm working on this afternoon. And then when all that is put together, we'll get that out and I'll make sure that you get a copy of that and see
You know,
what we're
something to
doing.
think about is how you can do it through board and leadership communication if you want. But how to use the weight of the full board in comments and
Well, this is
feedback.
the recommendations that we're making to the 15 trust counties on what program we are asking the governor and our legislators to backfill.
Well, you're doing the hard work to put together proposals, do analysis, showing up for us. And while this has a single digit impact to Washington County, we single million digit to the county government. We need all those single digit millions. But we're really representing all of the taxing districts in this endeavor. So
Yeah,
really,
thank you. I'll be reaching out to Columbia County and Clackamas County because those are the two other counties I represent at this table. Clackamas County is literally a couple $100,000 because there's all federal forest.
right.
Columbia County is a little bit bigger, but still not much. And I've been in communication with Margaret there as well, our representative.
Yeah.
Council Forest Trust that. So
Gruder.
it's going to be an interesting process and
Well, having a timber industry here in Washington County is something that I would like to continue to see into future decades. So, you know, having that balance of how do we make sure we're being good stewards of natural lands in our planet at the same time of supporting sustainable harvest levels.
well, and I do have the 2025 forest projections, revenue projections, because this HCP really won't kick in until 26 and later. And any agreement that we have with the legislature probably won't kick in until 26. And so I'll get that information to Greg as well, so to make sure we start our budget process then. So anyway,
Great.
it's been very interesting. But I tell you, it's it'll get a little more intense as we move into the dealing with all 15 counties.
The meeting on the 28th, is that going to be, and is it important to be there in person versus just online or?
I will be there in person on the 28th. It is in Salem, but we do have an online option. So
You'll let me know where I can be supported.
I will do that. Thank you. Elizabeth, you and I have a meeting coming up, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
CWS is rocking.
Of course, all day this week, this Thursday, I am in Tillamook for COPAC and Northwest Act meetings.
Does Region 1 Act take you on the road at all?
Not right now, we're Zoom. I'm kind of looking forward to our first meeting because it's a pretty large group. I'd like to kind of physically see everybody, but for right now, we're Zoom. Yeah. Then, of course,
Just like with WCCC being entirely Zoom, you know, you don't get the beforehand conversations and the after conversations when it's just on Zoom.
I don't figure out why WCCC isn't meeting in person. I mean, we used to meet at the Beaverton Library, you know, at noon. Seemed to work out. Everybody made it. So I don't know, maybe they're just liking their remote thing. What else is I'm not going to be at the Cedar Rising because I am going to be in Tillamook, so I apologize for that. And I don't think there's.
It's okay. We really need you at the Vienna Star 1 in Cornelius. That's coming up, I think it's September.
Okay. I'll look at my calendar to make sure it's on there.
I think it's on my calendar, so Meta can find it.
Okay. Yeah.
because, I've tried to make sure that you each, if you want, have the opportunity of delivering talking points. I'll be there, of course, but, it's
Okay.
your choice. If you
Yeah.
don't want to do it, I'll do it. But
Well, if I'm here, I'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Meta's giving you the thumbs up.
Pardon me?
You got the thumbs up from staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, that letter that we talked about yesterday to the OTC.
oh yeah, that's why I
We made
logged
some
in. We have a
modifications
new one,
in
right?
there. Yeah, we've got a new revised one. So thank you both for your input on that. And
We'll come back to that before we leave.
Okay.
the-
good, thank you. All right, that's all.
But Roy or Nafisa, 1, 2, 3, go.
Always late.
Okay, ladies first. Last week, yes, was a great week. I really enjoyed attending and hearing everyone speak at the groundbreaking for the cat. I had the sheriff's office kind of a week last week for me. I did say a few words at the employee recognition. And then I had a ride along, and I recommend if any of you have not done the sheriff's ride along, do it. It was a great experience for me, and also saw a lot of stuff that I did not know, and I also witnessed an accident on one of our problematic road, the Olson Schultz-Ferry Road intersection. Everybody is okay, but it was a pretty brutal accident. And then I also learned that LUT pays 2 deputies to do truck inspections. And the deputy that I was with saw a big, massive, huge truck that was hauling heavy metals, but they were using black zip ties to secure those heavy metals. And while driving behind in a bit of a distance, he saw and was immediately able to put the truck to the side and pull over, and then immediately took that truck out of service. And when he pulled over, the metals were actually moving, leaning one side, so they could have easily came untied and hurt somebody. So that was really Deputy Gravely is who I did the ride along, and it was a really great experience to see his day-to-day duties. And also learn LUT, congratulations. We saved lives that day because of the truck inspector. What else? And then I am taking a bit of a time off this month, but we'll be able to fulfill all committee assignment and these related, so no need to step in. This afternoon, I do have a public health advisory council that I'm planning on attending as our board rep to listen in and bring back any feedbacks the committee has for us or any asks. And yeah, I'm looking forward to my vacation. Some days off here and there. No big plans. I'll still be in Oregon, but yeah. And then let's see what else. Got time. And thank you for the well wishes for my kids last week. I was sick.
Yeah.
I wasn't sick. The kids were. So I appreciate all your emails.
And happy birthday.
Jerry laughed.
I just want to break out in song, but I'm just.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nafisa. Happy birthday to you. We ladies always go through.
Girl power. That's why the future is female.
Oh, yeah.
See where you guys marginalized?
I say that as a mom of boys.
That's right.
And with that, Commissioner Rogers.
As my friend Jerry would say, there will be no females if there aren't males. So
And vice
Balance.
versa.
that's true.
If you watch the movie or the show Orville, there are single species
Gender.
Yes.
Really,
Oh,
are we
you
gonna go
watched
here?
that episode, yeah.
Yeah, you opened that door, right?
No,
Need
doesn't
to
sound
move
like an
on.
exciting life, but okay.
Oh.
Yeah, on the cat, we need to acknowledge that, we had 4 speakers from the county. They were by far the best speakers. They, I think had some home court advantage, but I still think that you all did just an excellent job. So the 2 commissioners, plus we had 2 staff members.
Mm.
They did very, very well.
Thank
Last week I listened to John Mitchell at some length down at Tualatin. John, who used to be with West Bank. I think the VA used to hire,
Mhm.
everybody used to hire John. The only takeaway is that you might all be interested. The economy isn't as bad in this point, if you look nationally, as we all think it is, but everything depends. If you're buying a new house, it's not great. If you're buying new cars, it's not great. If you eat at the grocery store, it's not great. But other than that, it's not too bad. So it's on balance. It's just interesting how everybody positions. That is indeed an interesting issue, how you see it. This coming week, I've been for a long time on what we call BAC, which is Tualatin Business Advisory Commission. They've invited one Jason Snyder to speak. I didn't see him left, but it'd be interesting to hear Jason. Of course, I've heard him before, but
Oh, the things he'll learn.
well, it's yeah, what you don't know, you don't know, I guess. But anyway, I think that's about it. Quick and sweet. Ta-da. Sarah's already did hers.
The letter or?
Yeah, that's
to-
great. So I believe we've all been sent on our emails
We did.
from Stephen Roberts last night, a new version of this letter. Stephen, would you like to come up? And between you and Commissioner Willie, take us through what you would like us to put thank you, Jessica, for my faux pas.
And we do have some hard copies of the letter. If anybody wants to take a look at the hard copy.
I'll gladly take one. It's fine.
All right, there we go.
Since you got it, I'll take it.
Okay.
Well, when the piece.
I have it here.
Yeah.
This is how I actually remember things.
Yeah, you're like me, a little old fashioned in that way. Well, good morning, Stephen Roberts, Land Use and Transportation Director, and Jessica Pels, our policy analyst. So we wanted to bring this letter to you. It's really sort of multifaceted, the issues that we're hoping to address here and looking for your support in doing so. The sort of primary topical focus is really the issue of an upcoming decision actually in front of the Oregon Transportation Commission tomorrow to approve a conceptual finance plan to help make the urban mobility strategy whole. And the 2 big projects in there are the Rose Quarter I-5 project and the I-205 Abernathy Bridge project. So they're projecting somewhere between $300 and about $550 million in funding gap needs there. They're proposing a multi-pronged approach to that, one of which would be deferring a very large bridge painting project in the 2024 to 27 STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Plan. That would be painting the Fremont Bridge. So basically postponing that indefinitely. And then that generates $100 million. And then the remainder of the funds, it appears, would be achieved by bonding. So the bonding, as we've had multiple discussions here, that does have some potential implications for capacity for future project delivery as well. And there are different variations on the funding. Fundamentally, I think the question or the concern that we want to express is that there really hasn't been a lot of robust discussion happening at the regional area commission on transportation or the ACT level. R1 ACT discuss a potential draft letter in response to this a slightly earlier version of this same proposal on June 3rd. Commissioner Willie suffered through that along with us, and they were unable to achieve consensus on a letter from the ACT. So at the end of the meeting, the sense was that if specific jurisdictions have specific concerns, then each of us was encouraged to go ahead and submit a letter to OTC. So that's sort of the underlying theme here is, again, just the desire to have more engagement with OTC at the R1 Act level. These are some fairly significant decisions. I think ODOT has done a nice job of trying to limit most of the identified impacts to future state road improvement projects or repair projects. However, there are just the unintended spillover effects that can have as they maybe deferring maintenance on some of the state road projects. Those roads are also important to the functioning of our regional transportation network, and they're important. There are several bridges listed on US 101, number of bridges kind of on the east side of the Portland metro region as well. So there are just these sort of unintended consequences. And then, of course, the decision to defer certain projects today may have domino implications out into the future. So there's just been not a lot of discussion, as I say, involving the locals at this level. So that's really the purpose and function of the letter, really asking your board to remind the OTC, as you did in a letter about a year ago, that it would be ideal to have more engagement with the advisory committees that they have created, give them more chance to weigh in, really digest additional information, and then provide some meaningful feedback. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions or take any suggestions.
I just have one maybe suggestion. On the second page, first paragraph, second to the last line, where it reads concerned about the impacts to Washington County residents include M businesses.
Yes.
Should any blah, blah, blah. Beyond that, I think it's a marvelous letter. And I assume everybody's thumbs up, but after that, I think your CC list is good. If you could also get a final copy to the board and also forward it to WCCC.
Okay.
That'd be really marvelous.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you
Yes.
for bringing all this forward.
Thank you for both of you yesterday's input on that too.
Yep.
Yeah, the only comment I'd have is it is a well-written letter. This isn't the first time. We did it about a year and a half ago. And just be expecting that it may not be received very well by OTC. Yeah. That's what happened to me, and I suspect it might happen. So anyway, you're a big boy, you know.
I can throw down my rookie card.
Yeah.
Well, it's all
You're doing the
because
right
of
thing.
the concern on impact.
Mhm.
And we do say, we know it's a tough decision. We must work together, you know.
Yeah, we're not taking shots at them.
No, not at all.
Didn't a year ago.
Point out the obvious here.
The shame of it, and my editorial, the shame of it, we shouldn't have to have written that letter, but we shouldn't have to write this one. If it would only be inclusive in the discussion, and that nothing's changed. Yeah, sounds like. Anyway, thank you for doing it. Thank you for it is a good letter.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge, I think there's a time sensitivity. Sounds like a fairly pressing cash flow need for the I-205 project. So we understand they're needing to move quickly, probably maybe quicker than they would like. But yeah, we do think there could be opportunities for that additional engagement.
And even if they have to move forward with a decision now, coming back with the follow-up and the, what do we do now? You know, it's continued partnership, you know. It's not like we're leaving the state.
Well, and they don't have to do the whole thing all at once. I mean, they could, if they decided not to paint the Fremont Bridge $100 million, okay. If you got a cash flow problem today, then that would fix that and then hit the pause button on the bonding. You know, I'd like to think they don't have to go all in at this meeting, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think they don't have to make a decision on the full thing until they find out if they get the infra grant for Rose Quarter or not. So there's a little bit of time.
Yeah, great.
Lots of variables.
Hope they'll take advantage of
Thank you
the
very
time.
much, both of you.
Yes, and thank you all
you.
for your input yesterday too.
Yeah. Great. Leadership communication.
Well, good morning, board. For your awareness, your board subcommittee on ARPA is meeting tomorrow afternoon to review reallocation and spending options and spending to date, as well as an approach for that reallocation of funds by our December 2025 deadline. That seemed far away from at one point, but it's not far away.
Wait, December 2025?
24, excuse me.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Thank
she
you.
was a year
Sorry.
behind.
Yay!
So this time of year, I have a hard time switching between
December?
fiscal year and calendar year.
Okay, you got
So
the month right. I always screw up the month, so. Darn.
I wanted you to
December
get excited.
2024. I did, but not for the right reason.
Well, staff are closely monitoring, as you know, spending and project allocation to date to determine a definitive amount for reallocation. I know some of you have been approached by community-based organizations or other community leaders wanting to know what that reallocation amount is. I would really urge you to say we do not have a definitive amount at this point in time, and all funds must be allocated by the end of this calendar year. This is incredibly important. So if there's questions on this, if you are getting questions from community, please feel free to talk directly with myself or Danny Ledesma on this. As you may recall, the Washington County News and Resources Community newsletter was put on pause this last year due to staffing changes within our communications team. I'm really excited to report that we plan to reactivate this newsletter within this next month. To take you back to the pandemic days, this monthly newsletter was designed to amplify resource availability with an eye toward community building and a more resilient Washington County. With the help of community departments and community-based organizations, this newsletter has included community events, information on emergency preparedness, events or outreach about grants and programs. Really grateful for the work of Maria Gomez Martinez, who you've met, and she's on our communications team in putting this newsletter back into reality. So this is part of the pauses we need to make as we go through transitions of staff.
What do we call this newsletter?
This one is the Washington County News and Resources Community Newsletter. Once, when the new edition comes out, Philip Bransford will forward one to the BCC Communications just to remind you which newsletter this is. Chair, I will note you were one that said, hey, I'm missing this newsletter. So that's why I want to highlight the importance of getting this newsletter back.
Just trying to note it in the landscape of newsletters.
Yep.
That's all.
I also just want to lift up, I think it was fairly seamless while I was away.
It was, wasn't it, group?
I didn't see any of the assistant county managers around. It was pretty
Neither did
quiet
I.
up there on the third floor, you know.
Yeah, it was.
And despite her best efforts, Chair Harrington wasn't allowed to make any, right? No fears, nothing new. Come on, teasing here. They kept coming by and I was like, it's all good. Hey, just check it in, right, Marty? Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, it was a 2-week period. I think there is truly a power just in technology and being able to stay in tune and in touch with the team. A few things I want to just lift up from my experience. So spent a full week in Belgium during that time. Had a behind the scenes tour in Bruges and their urban planning efforts that actually began with in the 60s, focused on bringing community back to community and looking at multimodal transportation infrastructure, re-greening some of the hardscape, and also embracing the water and canals throughout the beautiful city. So really great to spend time with the transportation and also urban planners during that week. There was a delegation of city managers from Ukraine that also attended. ICMA, 40% of its budget is grants and contracts internationally. So ICMA does have a grant contract with the Ukraine government that's funded through USAID. They've surveyed city managers, and city managers had responded, the biggest need we have is for veterans and family support. As they look forward to the war ending, they don't have a veterans administration. There is no infrastructure in place. And with the federal government so overwhelmed, they're building that from the local city level. So ICMA staff are there through this federal grant to help build those community-based supports. And it was just incredibly moving to hear from city managers. And well, we recognize here in the US, there's improvements needed within our own Veterans Administration. It is just mind blowing to think about having to build that infrastructure from the ground up.
Was ours created after World War I or World War II? Because I know there was a effort after the Civil War.
That was, as old as I am, that was still before me.
Are you sure?
It's close.
I just don't know that portion of
Yeah.
history, so I'll have to look at the U.S. Veterans Administration website and see what I can find out.
Part of the time was also a European summit with city, county managers, different structures of government. So sometimes cities, sometimes they're counties, coming from all parts of Europe to really talk about the future of technology. AI is on many governments' radar. Commissioner Roger, I see you nodding because you've asked many questions about this space. And what was really maybe a bit reassuring, all the questions are the same across the world. No one has this new technology figured out, but really starting to test and in a safe way how we can embrace the future of technology. Then spent time within Canada, at the Canadian Local Government Managers Association, helped facilitate sessions on ethics and local government. And many of their sessions were focused around leadership training and then also community engagement. And then went to Palm Springs, another three-day focus on artificial intelligence, where I had the opportunity to facilitate the keynote opening speech. Had a bit of a panic moment because the second speaker wasn't in the room when I called his name up, but you know, in these roles, we're flexible and nimble, and I'm just glad he ended up walking into the room and asked for a round of applause. And so,
Dancing.
yeah. So these 2 weeks were really eventful from a learning, also making just international connections, both for Washington County and then also personally. So I will be sending the board later this week what I know as of today for upcoming travel. I've been invited end of August to go to Puerto Rico to the Puerto Rican Local Government Managers Association, as well as in October to go to Manchester, England, to meet with local government students on the next generation of public administration.
As a side note here, I just looked up the Veterans Administration,
Yeah.
and it was formed March 15th, 1989. Now that's the Veterans I know, we were just,
So Commissioner Teresa, specific agency was created in 1930, but benefits have been doled out since the American Revolutionary War from
Thank
what I
you.
researched. Yes.
Thank you, Kevin. Great.
Good morning, commissioners, Chair Harrington. That's kind of hard to follow. I was going to say something about the busyness of the last week of school for working parents, but I think I'll just table it. Seems irrelevant anymore.
Oh, I can relate to that too.
No. Bring me back up to speed. Schools. closed.
Last week of school for most Oregon schools, and especially in Washington County. So there's always a flurry of activities and fun things for the kids, which are very, appreciated, but do put extra demands on parents to make all that stuff go, which So sure, me and many people in the county, many staff in the county are facing that this week, but it is fun. And
Important life moments and
Yes.
your memory making.
Yes.
So
Thank
yay,
you.
families.
Yes.
Yes, and congratulations to all graduates. That includes those graduating from kindergarten to full-fledged first grade, those going from elementary to middle school and middle to high school, as well as high school into next first phase of adulting.
And including college graduations coming up. My niece just finished her college program, so that's pretty exciting too. I did want to raise for you this week, the Office of County Counsel will be having an in-person retreat this Thursday all day. We'll be talking about some office culture, some office goals. We'll do some training and just some team building. So we will be all together on site, but if you pop into our space, you may not find us, but we will probably all be online. Paying attention and learning together and collaborating together, but also keeping an eye on our other duties and serving the county as we go through that.
You're doing your retreat online?
Oh, no, I said we'll probably be keeping one eye online to make sure that we're available to serve you. No, we'll be in
Oh,
person together.
good.
We won't be in our physical office suite, trying to sort of remove ourselves from the day-to-day, but just letting you know, we will be around and available, but maybe a little slower than normal.
Not a
That's
problem.
it for me.
Cool. Thank you for sitting in, Elizabeth, for Clean Water Services.
Thank you so much for having me, Chair. Chair Harrington, Clean Water Services Board of Directors, Elizabeth Edwards, new Chief of Staff. And I'm sitting in for Diane today. Just a couple of updates. So our Clean Water Advisory Commission will be meeting tomorrow evening. The commission will receive updates on Scoggins Dam, as well as a presentation on reuse, followed by or sort of coupled with a tour of our Thomas Dairy site. So that should be a great event for our CWAC members. Also, we are planning out the remainder of the summer and we're looking at a barbecue and paddle in September. We're working with your staff to figure out timing because per the roundtable yesterday, you have some packed schedules. So we're seeing what we can do. Last week, just two things from last week, we had our annual meeting with the Tualatin River Keepers. We are really proud of the relationship that we've built with the River Keepers, the opportunity to share information openly and share learnings. Among other topics that were discussed were PFAS and the testing that we're doing, the Stormwater Master Plan, and just continued opportunities to partner. And then last but not least, last week, we had the graduation for the Northwest Women's Leadership Academy, which is a fantastic organization that works to advance women in a variety of backgrounds in local government and promote more women into leadership roles. And we had one of our own CWS employees, Jamie Hughes, with our regulatory affairs, graduate in the most recent cohort. So very excited to celebrate her. And then per Director Willie's comments, I am trying to make the rounds and meet with all of you as I get acclimated now, just starting my 4th week here with CWS. So if you haven't heard from me yet, you will soon, and look forward to building these relationships.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I also want to bring to life, and I meant to print this in my packet to do so, Casey Levy of the building of the LUT team. She's a building services supervisor. She also was a graduate of the Northwest Women's Leadership Academy. So I hope that the two of them had the opportunity. But that's an 8-month professional development program. And Ms. Angie, I want to say that with your leadership here at Washington County, I'm really pleased that we've been more judicious about employee training and career path development. It's really great. So cool. Well, does anyone have anything else? Well, it's not often that we finish a work session in the morning and before noon. So yay us. Hope that helps you parents enjoy not only your events this week, but whatever kind of transition you go through next week with regard to different summer camps and activities.
And grandparents.
Oh, and
I'm
grandparents
going to
too?
graduation tonight.
Yeah, well, I'll give a shout out for us aunts. How's that?
Yeah. All families.
All righty, we are adjourned. Thank you.